G'day everyone, g'day everyone. Welcome to Xrissart. My name is Chrissy and introducing our friend Will from Unmask Art. Thank you, Will, for joining us and critiquing our landscape challenge.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. A lot of really great submissions that I look forward to going through and talking about.
Oh, this is really cool. And I just wanted to say hello to our friends and then we can start, I suppose. So, g'day, Barbara. Nice to see you here. G'day, Cherry, Pam, Kathy, hello. Dee, Angie, hello. Naulani and Silke, welcome everyone. Okay, let's get the party started.
All right, so first off, the submissions that I'm going through are in no specific order. So in no way am I revealing the winners or the runners up in any way right now. That will be announced by Chrissy after I finish all of the critiques. And I have to just say that like all of the submissions were really, really fun to look at. I enjoyed seeing them, and it was tough. It was a tough decision to say, to give a first place, to give a second place. I wanted to give everybody first place. They came out really, really well, and everyone that participated should be super proud of their submissions. So, up first is Diane, and I really like this one. The sort of surreal suitcase in the woods with the tree coming out and the boat, and just all of the creativity in this piece really shines through a lot. And as far as creativity, it is just off the scales. And the the contrast between like this sort of fall summery wooded space and then this like space scene with the boat and the fisherman, it's just really fun to look at. It You just can't really pinpoint the story behind it because it's so vast and how unique it is. And I really, really liked this submission. And so anyways, enough about how great it is. Let's talk a little bit about what's working in it and what's not working and what could be improved in future. So the first thing, I like the color scheme. A lot of the colors play back and forth with the greens, yellows, and the reds and sort of the bluish purples. So there's a lot of play in complementary colors that work really, really well, especially with this tree coming out of the suitcase, sort of contrasted against the mainly green background. Same thing with the red bird here. Um, and so it looks really good. And the contrast in the environment with the woods and then sort of the water and the space, it just works really well together. Now, where I think it could be improved just a little bit is there's there's a lot of great contrast here in values. So you have really dark values and really bright values, and that really helps things stand out well. And then you also have great color contrast where you have the light yellows and greens versus the darker reds, and so you have the complementary colors. Um, but where the third type of contrast that I think it could have gone just a little bit better is the saturation contrast, the texture contrast. Because if the woods here was just a little bit out of focus, a bit more, so I'm going to artificially do this really quick. So I'm just going to blur the whole thing. And then what I'll do is I will bring back the foreground. And now the suitcase here is going to look much more like it's going to dominate the picture a lot more. And so the viewer's eyes are going to be pulled right into this really fun scene in the suitcase. And I'm just doing this rather quickly to show you what I mean. So if we bring the foreground forward, and you can see that here's the original. There's a lot of texture everywhere. And this is something that's really hard to do, especially in colored pencils, which I imagine this was done in. But if the all of these plants and trees and foliage here, especially behind the bird and this top edge of the suitcase, if they weren't in focus, then you can see that the suitcase in this whole entire scene, it almost creates this illusion of it being like a miniature, and it really focuses the viewer's eyes right there where the story's being told. Because even though the background is really important to set the scene, as far as the storytelling goes, I think the background is a little bit too in focus in this piece. So here's the original, and here's just adding that subtle blurriness, and getting those blurry backgrounds we all know is like super difficult, and especially creating like this depth of field effect in our artwork. It's not easy. It's a lot easier said than done.
Oh, it's
But
very hard, isn't it?
overall,
Yeah.
yeah, overall it's a super beautiful piece, and aside from that little bit of texture contrast that I added there, uh, I wouldn't really change anything else about it. I think it works out really well, and yeah, that's about it. That's the way this one goes for me.
This is lovely.
Great colors and composition. Yeah, really good composition. All right, up next is Naulani, and she has this very, very peaceful fall landscape that came out really, really well. Really like the colors in this one. Fall colors are always great, right? They they're always so vibrant and warm. Fall always, even though fall is generally a colder season, the colors make the scenery nice and warm. And I'm not actually I think this is watercolors. This has to be watercolors, right? Could be gouache. I'm not sure exactly what the medium is here, but it's for sure a watercolor or gouache, I think, based on the texture of this building and the blades of the grass here. Now, a few things that work really well with this landscape here is definitely the colors. The colors work really, really well. Those oranges and yellows are great, and I like the color harmony between the foliage, the building, and the grass. I like to see a little bit of those oranges coming into the grass. That really creates nice color harmony throughout. And the perspective of this scene is really well done. This sort of gravel dirt road path that leads back, it really pulls the viewer's eye. Oh wow, this is acrylic. Also you must have watered down the acrylics quite a bit for this effect on the roof. Either way, regardless of the medium, it looks really good.
I love the trees, like the red
Yeah,
trees.
yeah, these trees just look, the texture on these trees is just so wonderful. And the brightness on the left side really, really helps give you this illusion that the light source is sort of coming from the left here, at least on the trees anyway. But I love the texture on this path. And the perspective of it really pulls you into the scene nicely. I think so. With those things being said, there's a couple things that I think would improve this piece off right away. I think it's the glare from the camera that's sort of bringing this sort of glare here on the sky. So it's really difficult to actually see what the sky colors are. But from here, it looks like a really soft color, which I love. It looks really good from what I can see, but the glare's kind of messing it up a little bit. But the soft orange here and the yellows into the purples, the sky's perfect. But these trees here, these trees are really, really green. And I get that they're evergreen trees, but there's not this color of green. It doesn't really come into the rest of the piece. So if I were to just sort of pull this green, and let's just add a little bit of this green sort of randomly throughout. So I'm going to add it to the barn here. I'm going to give this barn a little bit more of a green tone. I'm going to throw in a little bit of the green into the grass, just so that the green from these trees exists within the rest of the piece, because right now this green sort of stands alone. It's sort of isolated into the back. And I think the green should show up a little bit more up in the front. So here's without the green, and then here's with just a little bit of that green coming in. And you start to feel that balance in the existence that this green sort of in context makes more sense. And I'm going to add some of the yellow into these trees, just a few spots of yellow. Again, just harmonizing the colors overall. The other thing that sort of could be improved on this piece is the perspective of the grass. So one of the things that you see here with the grass is the size of it. So I'll just grab a bright color so everybody can see what I'm talking about. So the size of it up here is about this length. So it's all pretty close to about this length. And I can find the same length back here. So the distance from here to here, this is further back. So the general rule for perspective, so this is kind of our horizon line, and the perspective sort of comes out like this. And the general rule is for every half step back, you go half the size. So the grass here, say the grass is this size, this would be a half step to the horizon. It's about halfway to the horizon. That means this grass should be half this size. And then back here, it should be a dot, basically. And so by altering the scale of your blades of grass, it enhances that perspective. So over here, again, we can see the grass blades are sort of this length, some even a little bit longer. And then here, we sort of see that same length in the grass. And so when you're doing these grass textures, flowers or grass or foliage, you want to make sure that the scale of them follows the rule of the perspective as well. It's great to have that texture, and it's nice that your texture dissipates. Like here you have less texture than you have up here, which is great. It helps create that illusion of perspective, but you also want to make sure that when you add the little blades of grass, that the scale of them changes as well with the perspective. So that's just one thing to keep in mind there.
And that's the way you explained it like that, that's a really good way to, when you're thinking about perspective. I never even thought about it like that. I'm going to steal that tip. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I like that. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. The other thing about this is the barn here just looks a little bit too perfect. I would have liked to see maybe a bit of imperfection in the barn, maybe some like weeds growing up the corners or something messing up on the roof, maybe like some leaves or some spots of the colors. Make it a little bit messier. Here, the barn just looks a little bit too clean. You know, this sort of feels out in the middle of nowhere. It's not upkept. And so having the barn a little bit messier, a little bit more run down, I think would have added a lot of character to the barn. And then also, one thing that sticks out is this edge that wraps around the roof of the barn is spotlessly clean. Somebody must go out here daily and wipe down the aluminum of this roof because it is just spotless clean. And it's sort of those perfections that take away from it as opposed to add to it. So a little bit more imperfection to this part of the roof, I think would have gone a long way to add just a bit more character to it and made it feel a bit more natural, because here this edge here just feels a little bit unnatural. And then so a little bit more imperfection. I would have also liked to see an object, so give us a little bit more of a story. This barn, who knows what this barn's used for, right? Nobody knows. So maybe you add a bright red tractor Like, I'm not going to try to pretend that I can draw a tractor with a mouse. Uh, but let's just say there's a tractor here. You know, add a tractor, give the barn a little bit more story next time because it's already such a great scene. So why not make it a bit more of a story? So otherwise, beautiful painting. It looks
Lovely,
phenomenal.
yeah.
Alrighty,
Wow.
up next is Robin. And I don't know if I saw Robin in chat, but Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would go out on a limb and say that this is pastel. This looks very pastel to me.
Yeah, Robin White. Yeah, no, I don't think she's
Yeah,
in here.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
very pastel-like. And the colors here, again, the colors are wonderful. The colors are super great in this project, and I think there's not a lot more to be said. Like the colors are just really great. It really pulls you into the scene, especially with all of the dark blues that sort of surround and encase the sun and its reflection. It really just sort of builds a lot of depth, great texture in the foreground and the waves and the highlights and all of that as well. Uh, a couple things that can quickly improve this is defining the horizon line a bit sharper. So if you could take this dark purple black and you cut across this horizon line, you always want to make sure your horizon line is flat, by the way. Here it looks just slightly askew, but that could have been from the photograph. I can't say for sure. So really define that horizon line, separate the water really well. That way, it there's not a lot of objects in focus in this project. You have the waves up front, and then you want to have that really well defined horizon line to give that separation, especially when there's mountains on the horizon line. So that's a good idea. And then the top edge of the mountains, try to get those a little bit sharper. They don't have to be super sharp, but again, you want to define that really well, define that horizon line so that the viewer isn't left guessing. It right there, just by clarifying what the horizon line is, it feels more mountainous, and it sort of pushes the sky back even further, having a bit of that contrast there at the horizon line. The other thing is, this is pastel, so you can sort of blend indefinitely. And if you simply blend out that sky just a bit more, I'm going to give it, let's see here, let's give it a little bit of a motion blur because I like to go horizontal in my skies. So if I just go a little bit more horizontal in just the sky. So let's see here. So I'm just going to give the sky a little bit more of a horizontal blur.
Oh, yes.
And you can see that
Oh, yeah.
the clouds become softer, and this pulls the focus into the foreground, into the waves, where the camera is truly focused. The camera's more focused here than it is back here in the sun. And really, you could have the sun nice and defined as well. So I could unblur that part of the sun, so it still has a focal point here at the sun, but you want to soften these clouds a bit because you don't want the texture of the sky competing with the texture of the ground, because the sky is always much softer. Clouds are never as rough as the ground. And so just by doing that small little softness of the sky immediately just sort of brings your eye forward. So this is sort of the same thing that I discussed with Diane's piece. You never want the background is super important, of course, but you don't want it competing with where you want the viewer to be focused on. So it's important. It should have details, and in some cases it should have texture, but it should never have so much texture that it pulls the viewer's eye away from where you truly want them to focus.
I also
Uh,
like the little highlights. The when you get twinkles, like that twinkle on the in the foreground, like
oh
the
yeah,
little
yeah,
reflection. Yeah, the little
the little
tin.
sparkles.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, I like that a lot too. I always like to put that in my water, little sparkles, little diamond sparkles. Yeah, but excellent piece. The colors again, the colors. I just love the colors in this
So
one.
pretty.
All right, up next is Chandri, and she did this lovely painting with fields of red, I guess is the name she gave it. And the colors here, again, like wonderful color choice, great uh, contrast between the green and the red, great use of the of yellow for the sort of the hazy background to set these greens on top of, and then the reds. It's very warm. Like you look at these colors and they just make you happy because they're very warm. They're very summer like, and they look really good together. Um, Now it's it's a little less of a landscape than some of the other submissions, but you could still argue that it's, a close up of a particular part of a landscape.
Yes.
Uh, just the flower part of like a field of flowers. And I mean, stylistically, it's it's perfect. I wouldn't change anything about it. It's just really, really great. I like the vertical lines. You see the vertical lines in the yellow, which help reinforce that vertical texture of the grass. So, uh, technically, on a technical level, it's really, really well done. It's good to think, it's important to have those particular brushstrokes in your work. Most people sort of when they're trying to cover their canvas or panel or whatever, uh, they may just oh, I want the background to be yellow, and they're just sort of trying to cover it as opposed to thinking about what their brushstrokes will look like later on. And here you can see the vertical brushstrokes, which is really important, and that subtle texture that everything else is built upon. For instance, with skies, you want to keep things nice and horizontal because it helps create this layering that the sky naturally has. And so a brushstroke's really important, and it's nice to see that attention to detail and just the background where it's sort of just a mix of light yellow and golden yellow. Um, I think where this piece could improve a little bit, because there's actually not a lot that could be improved on this. It's sort of everything's done really, really well here. I would have liked to see just a bit more variation in the reds of the flowers. That's about it. Uh, the red is sort of flat between flower to flower, and if it was just so I'll take this red, and we're sort of thinking warm. So we have yellow, we have green, we have red. Another warm color is a nice orange. So if I take that same red and I take some of the yellow that maybe I used in the background, I just add it to that red. And then I will just add a little bit of highlight of orange to, let me not do it on the same layer. So I'll just add a little bit of highlight of orange to my flowers.
Oh, I see.
So let's add some more saturation to that orange. And this is going to make those flowers a bit rounder. They're going to have a bit more form to them. And it's just going to introduce even another warm color into the scene. So just a touch of orange on the flowers sort of gives them a more roundness, gives them a little bit of a highlight. Now I probably wouldn't do it exactly like this. I'd probably use this orange to more or less sort of highlight edges. So you can highlight particular edges and add just a touch of detail to some of these flowers. Something like this, sort of emphasizing the individual petals of the flowers. So
Um,
you could have used that orange in that manner.
yeah, by doing that, like the poppy that's the biggest one there, you've made it look even more 3D.
Yeah, yeah, it just takes
Yeah.
a tiny bit. Just takes a tiny bit. So it's very small changes at the end of the day. Um, but when you don't think of these things, then you don't usually accidentally apply them to your work. So it's just really small, tiny things that you can now that you have seen me do it, and if you remember it for your next projects, you can start thinking about these things to to enhance your already great work. So
Wow.
yeah, just a touch of orange on some of those, and they really just sort of pop out even more. And it warms up the flowers a bit more because I gotta say the dark red here, it's sort of like a maroon. Maroon is a rather cool red color, so which is great for the shadows, but using a little bit of orange in the bright parts really makes sure that the flowers are even warmer. So yeah, excellent work, Chandri.
Wonderful.
Up next is Pamela, and she did this project in oils. And again, a great use of complementary colors. Some of the red flowers up here against all of the green, where this where this project can go depends a lot on how you understand perspective and capture perspective, because this is where perspective can come into play a lot. So if we grab our horizon line here, I'll just use a bright color to sort of define the horizon line. This bridge sort of defines where the horizon line is, and for this particular piece, it's more of a one point perspective. So your viewer's eye is sort of right here, the vanishing point. And remember, with one point perspective, everything disappears to that vanishing point. So if I try to fit the river here into the vanishing point, what you'll notice is that the little, maybe it's not so much a river as it is like a small creek or something. What you want it to do is you want it to open up near the bottom. You want it to widen because that's going to give you that depth. So I don't know if I can artificially do this, but let's see if I can sort of give you that perspective a bit. So let me.
I also like the little dog, the little girl with the dog watching the other dogs in the water. I think that's such a cool little thing there.
Yeah,
So cute.
it's good good storytelling.
Yes.
I don't know why this is being so weird. I need it to not be locked. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to try to change the perspective of just this bottom part here. So transform and distort. No, not like that. There. So I'm going to sort of stretch out this bottom part in a way that brings the little river thing wider at the bottom.
Interesting.
It's tough to do it
Oh yeah, but you get the idea.
artificially like this,
Yeah.
but that's sort of what you want to try to bring into your work. And sometimes just having guidelines when you're doing your initial sketch will really help you get a little bit more depth in your painting. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is that as objects are further away from you, the saturation levels of the color go down. So the trees back here should be a bit more faded in comparison to the ground up here. So this ground up here is the same value as these trees back here, whereas these trees back here should be lighter than the ground up here. And so you want to keep those things in mind as well, um, with creating that depth of the landscape. The other thing that you want to make sure you keep in mind, especially with landscapes that you may have used a reference to try to create a scene, but sort of went out on your own. So one thing to keep in mind is light. So you have these shadows here from the dogs and from the person. These shadows should be universal. So all of these trees should have these shadows pointing in the same directions. The bridge here will have a shadow, it'll have a cast shadow, because it, based on these shadows, I would say that the sun is like this. And so all of these cast shadows, you want to make sure that they're universal among all of your objects that you have in your scene. So the tree trunks, the trees here, the trees will have this shadow.
Yeah.
And then the bright part of the tree up here, where facing the sun, you want those bright parts to face the sun. So make sure that your light performs universally across all the objects in the scene when you're sort of creating a scene from your imagination. So that's just something to keep in mind for future paintings.
Lighting is so important, isn't it?
Yes.
Makes or breaks the painting, doesn't it?
Up next is
Thurza.
Thurza. Okay, Thurza.
Yeah.
I was struggling on the exact pronunciation. So Thurza, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this is watercolor. Very, very elegant, very simple watercolor painting. Wonderful colors, really, really fun composition. If I were to write a children's book, I think I would hire Thurza to illustrate it, because I would want the scenes to look something like this. Like the softness, the colors. Like, this is the thing with watercolors that you just don't really get with any other medium. It always just has like this really peaceful color, like, feel to it. You know what I mean?
Oh, very luminous is probably.
Yeah. It just
They always use those words, or that word.
Yeah, it just looks so lovely. And this scene is just so peaceful and calming. Wonderful color, and really nice contrast as well. Like, even though all of the colors are light and it feels very airy, there's still enough contrast in here for you to sort of focus in on these four trees that are done really, really well, by the way. All these four trees, even though they're like the same type of tree, they all have their own unique characteristics, and they look really good. Great little details of the sticks kind of poking out everywhere. And just enough of that bright green to give you that sensation of light that matches the cast shadows. So this is a good example of using the highlights on the actual leaves of the tree and on the tree trunks themselves that match the cast shadows. So this is a really good use of light. There's not a lot on the ground to tell you the direction of the light source, so it's really the trees that give you all of the information of the scene. So they're really, really well done, because this isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. So yeah, this piece came out really, really well. I think I'm not going to try to draw anything extra in here, but I would have loved to see a tiny bit more story here. I would have loved to see some kind of object, maybe a person, maybe like I don't know, somebody in the grass having a picnic. That's what I think I would love to see. I would love to see like the red and white checkered picnic blanket with a
Oh yeah.
basket and like a bottle of wine or something. Because
Mm.
I feel like that's what needs to be happening in this setting right here. Is just a nice peaceful picnic and a bottle of wine. Like I think I just feel like it belongs, you know.
Yes,
And
yes.
I would have loved to see the use of red, because I'm sort of a sucker for complementary colors. So
Mm.
anytime you use complementary colors, especially green and red,
Mm.
they always look so good in landscapes, in my opinion.
You do.
Red always looks fantastic. Real bright red in landscapes.
Oh,
It just complements all of the natural foliage so well that yeah, I'd love to see a picnic
yeah. Mm. Oh,
taking place
yes.
in the scene.
That's right.
Other really other than that, I have nothing to add to it because it's just so well done.
Mm.
So excellent submission. There's up. All right, up next is Kathy, and she did this just amazing. I don't know what medium this is. I'm guessing maybe acrylic, possibly oil. Um, do you happen to know what medium she did this
I
in?
think it's pastel. Kathy's in the chat. Kathy, is it pastel?
Oh yeah, I guess I do see some nature of pastel down
Yeah.
here. Yeah, yeah. Well, whatever medium is, goodness gracious, like the level of precision and detail here is just phenomenal. It just came out super good. And the thing that I always look at, like when I look at this, and I've looked at it several times since you submitted it, Kathy, uh, I always look at the rocks, right? I'm always looking at these rocks here, and nothing else really captures my attention as much as like this space right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the wave, not the wonderful reflection, but this space right here, these rocks, I just I feel like I could rub my hand against them and actually
Feel
feel
the
like
the
the
moss.
moisture from the ocean. Like
Yes.
they have that perfect sheen that gives you an idea that they're wet from all the spray of the waves. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just it
And
just
it's
came out
pastel.
so
Kathy's.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy says pastel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that. Very well done, Kathy. Like on a technical level, uh, it's just it's just really spot on like the technical work that I know had to go into creating this scene here. Um, Now, with that said, um, again, I would have sort of liked a little bit of a story, because from this scene, it to me it feels very technical, and like it was a reference photo that you didn't change much from the reference photo. It was sort of just the reference photo, and you technically went in and masterfully re-rendered from a reference photo. And like I would just love something other than these rocks to capture my attention, uh, like a person a person standing here. This is my person standing here. I would have loved to see a person standing there, maybe a surfer, somebody with a surfboard, or maybe just like a lady in a sundress and a hat, like one of those like really weird sun hats, you know, that is
Yeah.
all.
Big ones.
so, so I want to see somebody in this scene, like really a lot, because I would have also loved to see their reflection. So
Mm.
the person standing here waving, um, and then their reflection down here, like
Mm.
it even with the stick figure, I'm no longer just looking at rocks.
Mm.
I'm looking at this person experiencing like this just beautiful scene here. I would have loved to see that because I don't think there was a person in the reference photo, if I had to guess. Um, so I would have liked to see something added to the reference photo, or I'm not sure exactly if this was like just a reference photo or if you compiled it. But from my perspective, it just looks like a really well done technical piece where I would have liked to see a bit of a risk taken in the creativity side of it. Not to say that it's not creative at all.
I like, the bottom left where you see the reflection where it ends, because
Yeah,
I really
because the
like
cliff
that.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, the cliff.
and I
Yeah,
like that spray. So if you look further up, I like that spray in the background there, just in front of the
yeah,
rock. I like
yeah.
that as well.
Yeah. I think it I think the spray overall probably could have used like a few little extra bits coming over top of the rock, because you have that black, that really, really dark rock, and it almost looks like a freshly trimmed poodle. Like it's so clean. Like it's very clean. Like you just took your scissors, and you ever seen that picture of that like little toy poodle where they're like clipping around his face and his head is like super round. So it's sort of too perfect there. And I would have liked to see a little bit of a little bit of splatter that just sort of breaks the rules, just a little bit more life into these waves. Even that extra little bit of splatter going everywhere also distracts me from just looking at the rocks, because the rocks are just so well done that my eyes just go to the rocks, and it's like all those that cliff side just looks so good. Like it just looks so good. And I kind of feel like the wave is is playing second fiddle to the rocks, because the just that perfection, that little bit of perfection there. So yeah. Anyways, this is just a wonderful piece, just absolutely gorgeous. Anyways, up next, is it dirty?
Deirdre.
Deirdre. Wow, I was way off.
Deirdre.
Okay, Deirdre.
Yes.
Deirdre?
I know it's
Okay.
very very hard to spell. I have to always check, but yeah,
Yeah.
but that's Deirdre. Yeah.
Okay, Deirdre. I have a hard time saying that name. Um, so this looks like colored pencil, if I had to take a guess. And this is a difficult piece. Like this gate here, very, very well done. Like you can see that it's metal, great, great subtle reflections. Like the precision, I don't know how large this drawing is, but the precision on the scale of this is really, really well done. Like you look at it and you can see the reflective properties that she gave like each little bar in this gate, which would have just been super difficult. Very straight lines. Like this object is tough because there's these really precise curves. There's these very straight lines. Like I would imagine she used a ruler to get these straight lines, which I commend you for, because I would have much preferred you use a ruler and get these nice straight lines than try to freehand it and it be all wonky. So on a technical level, it's very tricky to get this sort of symmetrical pattern looking good and getting these nice sharp lines, especially with medium like colored pencil. So um, I
Oh, Deirdre's watching. Yes, coloured pencil.
okay, great. Um, I think
Oh, g'day, Deirdre.
yeah,
By the way.
the composition is really, really cool as well, because it's sort of this gate is opened up and it sort of invites you in, and you can see the beginnings of the light source. So if you look closely, where's my mouse? My mouse is trying to hide from me. So if you look really closely, you can identify where the light source is coming from. You have this little potted plant here, so you have this cast shadow. See, this is a cast shadow here that falls along the patio,
Yes.
but there's not enough information to tell you what that cast shadow is being cast from, because it's sort of just falling out of the sky. But these little pots back here, they give you just enough information. Here's the chair and the table. It looks like a glass table with like spots on it, and so there's just enough information peeking through these little potted plants that tell you that the light source is coming from this direction. And um, That's great because you want to establish that light. You want to establish that light. You want to create that illusion that's happening, that's taking place in this scene. Now, where you want to you use that information when you're working. Oops, whoa, what is that? Um, you want to make sure that you use that contrast as well as you can. So this spot back here is really, really dark, which competes with that idea of creating depth. So the three types of contrast that you're going to be dealing with when it comes to landscapes and really just about anything, you're going to be dealing with values. That's the first type of contrast. So values, as you come closer, your values become deeper in the details. So you don't really want to use your darkest values in objects that are farthest away. You want to sort of reserve those for the things that are close up, because that's what helps create that depth. The second type is saturation. So objects that are farther away, they tend to be in lower saturation. You want to save those really vibrant colors for the objects up close, again, to help create that illusion of depth. And then the third type of contrast is texture. You want things to be that are far away to be soft and not really in focus, not a lot of texture, not a lot of detail. And then as you come closer, you increase that level of texture and detail, again, to reinforce that illusion of depth. And so here you have quite a bit of texture taking place back here, where I think the focus should be this spot right here, this sort of ground where the light is coming through. And so this really dark value, I think, would have been better up here in the cast shadow that's taking place here, and then also on the bricks. So these bricks sort of frame the whole piece. And bear with me for a second, because I'm just placing in this color here. And then also this tree. This tree, I don't believe could possibly be that bright, because it's the bottom, it's underneath the tree. And you can see with this sort of framing, I'll just pull this down a little bit. If I darken those values, you see the way the patio, the fact that it's lit up by the light, it sort of pulls you in towards the space better. Let me get rid of these red lines. So it sort of brings you into the light. So it makes you feel like you're standing in the shadow, and you're peering out from underneath this shadow into the bright sunlight. And that effect is, it doesn't happen quite here, because the values in the back are too strong in comparison to the values of the shadow that you're standing under. And so this immediately sort of brings you into the shadow staring out at the light. And you notice that the light source in the space appears to be brighter, even though I didn't brighten the light source at all. I didn't change the brightness level. All I did was change the darkness level of everything surrounding that space. And now all of a sudden the light appears brighter. And so had you gone a little bit darker in this sort of framing, because I think the framework is there, like you have this wonderful natural occurring frame that's broken up by this really cool detailed gate, and then now you have like this blooming light that's taking place in the photo, in the artwork here.
Yeah. By framing, that frame that you did made my eye go to the center of where the pots are.
Yeah, yeah. And that's another place that you would want to also pay close attention to on color, or on value rather. So these parts of the potted plants, make sure that you reinforce that light.
Oh yeah.
Right here on the plants. Make them look three-dimensional, and bring out that cast shadow. Really strengthen those cast shadows on the potted plants. so
Oh,
that
yeah.
they look more three-dimensional. And again, every little bit of this, all it does is reinforce the illusion of light that's coming down, that's coming down from here.
Mm.
And then on top of all that, you could even bring in light like this. 1 second. I promise I know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna blur this layer. And then let's go to something like lighten.
Oh, I see.
If you wanted to bring in like some
Yes, I know
sun
what you mean.
rays,
Yes, I know
you
what you
could
mean.
you could do sun rays like this.
Wow.
That is,
It's interesting how, yeah, that frame, the way it just changed it, and increasing the cast shadows where the pots are. Particularly
yeah.
that one where it's behind the gate, that one sticks out to me when you did that. But Deirdre, I love the way you did the bricks as well, like that on the side, the right bit, and the gate is phenomenal too. Man, that's detail for you.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, you could also, sorry, I'm just having so much fun with this piece. This is just like the composition of this piece, I think, is probably my favorite of all the submissions. Compositionally, I think this is one of my favorites because there's just so much fun that you can have with this. Let's go into.
See, that area now almost is, it's inviting you to walk in there. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Walk down the
If
path.
I take these colors and I'm just going to enhance these colors just a little bit, pull down the shadows. And so here's
Oh, look at the rays now, it's coming up.
so here's the before and after. So if the colors here, you can go bolder with these yellows and greens and reds, just go bolder with those colors. And as long as the shadows stay darker than all these colors, then you just get, you just get this really colorful, bright scene. So you could go bolder with all of these colors, brighter pinks, brighter yellows. And then again, with these plants, you want to make sure that with all of the plants, you also, you give them their own shadows. So the plants themselves have shadows, so you want to make sure that you give them that a little bit of the dimension as well, and all of that stuff. So there's just so much fun to be had with this project. So yeah, just keep those things in mind. It sort of went over the top with the description of light. I know that it's a lot to take in, especially if you're sort of a beginner or even intermediate. Like I've been studying light for a long time, and so for me, it's just sort of intuitive for me to sort of think of these things, identifying light sources and all of that. It takes time, takes practice, but as you get better at understanding how light works, you can use it in your artwork to create deeper scenes like this. So wonderful piece.
Well done.
All right, up next is Silky, and she
look at
has
that
this lavender, right? Is what
Yes,
these
yeah.
plants are. Yeah. This is another really great scene where I was struck by the lighting. So the lighting in this is really, really well done because the cast shadow here, I imagine, is a cloud blocking the sun. Like it could be a cloud blocking the sun, or it could be a tree that's off scene. There's something off scene here that's creating this wonderful blue cast shadow that's changing the color of these sort of pink, purple, lavender flowers into these deep purple. And it's really, really well done the way this cast shadow drapes over the top of these flowers, and it completely transforms the colors. It goes from pink to purple, and the purple complements the yellow really, really well. The
And the green.
pinks complement the greens really,
Yeah.
really well. You can see here in the hills in the back, you can see that the saturation level is lower on the green. It's more of a gray. So if I just grab this color really quick, you can see that these colors are more gray in comparison to the bright green foreground. So this is a good example and a good use of saturational contrast, where you're using less vibrant colors in the back, and those hills and mountains, they feel further away, and part of that is the saturation level. If these hills and mountains were as bright green here, they wouldn't feel as distant. So this is a really good use of the changing saturation. Still yet, I think the grass could probably, the grass here could probably be a little duller, even in the back, just a little bit back here. If it was just faded a bit more, and not compete so much with the saturation and the flowers. But it still works. So I'm not saying it's wrong or anything. I'm just saying that you can continue to use that even back in this section here. And then also the values. So the values here, this is like a dark green, whereas up here it's like pure black. So the values are also increasing as you're coming closer to the viewer. And that's what really helps pull your attention towards here in this area. So it's just really, really well done. This is another scene that I sort of kind of wish there was more story to. It's a beautiful landscape, but I would have loved to see maybe a person. Doesn't have to be a person. People are really great in putting in your scenes. Anytime you could put a dog, maybe a little bunny rabbit, you could put just about anything. But when you leave the landscape void of life, like moving life, like an animal, a person, it sort of lacks story immediately, you know? You could put somebody riding a bicycle, maybe there's a path over here. There's a house, so people exist in the world that you've created here. So let's get some of those. Let's get some of that life into the scene. So try to think about that in your future for your landscapes. But otherwise, this project came out really, really well. Yeah, I love the colors, love the composition.
I love the purple. It's one of my favorite colors anyway. So
yeah, purple is the greatest. All right. Last but not least is Cherry, right? I didn't miss anybody. Yeah. So Cherry, final submission for the competition is Cherry's piece here, and this is a really, really great scene. I feel like I've stood in a spot just like this before. Wow. Like there's a lot of space. It feels wide open, really great colors, beautiful sky. Like I love the complexity of the clouds. A lot of people struggle with clouds, but I don't think Cherry's one of them, because her clouds look alive. Her clouds look like when you look up at the sky on like spotty, cloudy days and you try to pick out shapes and try to describe what the clouds look like. Because you could spend a day looking at her clouds and just pick out random shapes. Because let's see, what do I see? I see a unicorn right here. I see a unicorn.
I see a lizard as well.
So a unicorn. Where's your lizard at?
We're just underneath the head, and there's the dark bit is the eye, where you had your unicorn on the right hand side.
So this still lizard?
No, no, no.
This
Keep on going. Keep on going. It's touching the end of the
this
painting. No, a little bit
oh,
further
this
down.
is a lizard
Yeah, that's the one.
lizard
That.
here. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
it.
that I see it. I see it. Yeah, I see it. Definitely a lizard.
Oh
Um,
dear.
I see a shark over here.
Yeah, that's right. So do I. There it is.
I see a shark.
A white pointer.
Yeah, yeah. I see a shark.
Hmm.
What else? All kinds of, yeah, I mean, like I said, you can just stare at this for forever because there's just so many fun shapes in the sky. So it's really, really great sky, wonderful clouds. Um, you can definitely get lost in them. Um, Great colors, wonderful contrast. Like there's just so many great things about this scene. Good perspective. You can feel how the space really opens up here. This pond, it's really wide. It's coming towards you. So that's really really good perspective there. Spot on. The colors in the trees, the texture in the trees is just phenomenal. Like it really really looks great. Um, these bright orange things, I have no idea what they are, but they look wonderful. I think they just the water. By the way, the water looks great. The reflections in the water, uh, really really good. I think there's only two things that I would say could be improved on this piece. Like almost nothing can be improved, but there's like two things that I think can be improved. Very, very small things. The first thing, this plant that is sort of framing the right side, uh, it's okay that it's not symmetrical and it doesn't frame the other side. So if I were to, I think that maybe it could, that is not the right tool. Stop. Hold on one second. So if I were to just take a chunk of this, right, and I'm just gonna copy that. Let's rotate it, bring it down here. If this plant was over here, I think maybe it just having a little bit of extra something on this side, framing the left side as well. That would have been kind of nice to see. Just doing it like artificially. But also what I really would have liked in this plant is it to be more vibrant than these patches of unknown plant back here. This super, super bright orange, it sort of it keeps pulling my eye to the left as opposed to this plant here. And so the saturation between these two areas is, I feel, is just slightly off balanced. So that's one of the two things that I can sort of discuss potentially changing or addressing slightly differently. But it's not something that has to be. Just to be clear, it's not like it's wrong or anything like that. It's just that these really bright colors sort of pull me away from this because I feel like the focal point should be this space, this general space where the ducks are. I think those are ducks. Maybe they're swans or.
I was trying to figure out what they were, but they could
Yeah,
be. Are they swans, Cherry? What are they?
or geese.
Geese? Yeah, geese.
They look. Are geese white? I don't even know what a.
Yes, they are.
No,
Yeah,
they're not white. Geese
yeah.
aren't white, are they?
Yes, they are.
I think they're ducks. Well, whatever they are, I just feel like this should be more of the focal point. But these little bright patches, since they're more vibrant than what's happening up here, pulls me back towards the left. Oh, you did dull down the orange a little bit? Oh, okay. Now, so that's the first thing. That's just the first thing. The second thing, and this is really, really hard to do, is that the ellipses are not in perspective. So these ellipses that make the ripples in the water, they break perspective. And most people probably can't recognize where it breaks perspective. It's off just a little bit, but an average person would be able to feel like they're off a little bit. Like, do you, Chrissy, can you tell me which ripples break perspective in this scene? Kind of putting you on the spot here.
The one in the middle.
Which one sort of feels off? So you're saying the one in the middle here?
Yeah, the middle.
Yeah, that is the one that breaks perspective. And the way that you can tell here is if you look at these ellipses here, they fall within this plane. And when I move this ellipse up here, you can see that they're taller. So the ellipses that circle this duck are taller, meaning they're more like this.
Yeah, sure.
They're more like, why is it doing that? Okay, they're more tall, like that. When you go further back, the ellipses will become flatter and flatter and flatter until you get to the horizon line where the ellipses are just lines.
Yeah,
they're just flat lines.
Yeah.
So here, these ellipses, oh no, why did it do that? Let me just find the ellipse size here. So these ellipses here, about there, and then these ones should be flatter. These ones should be a little bit flatter because it's farther away. And because they don't, they break perspective. So the scale of these ellipses, because they're taller, they actually sort of pull this duck forward closer than this duck, even though visually it's supposed to be behind it. So it's subtle. It's a subtle thing. A majority of people will look at it and their brain will be slightly confused as to which duck is closer to you because the perspective is slightly distorted there. And that's the two things. So those are the only two things. The ellipses here, incredibly difficult to do. Like, let's just be honest. This is not an easy thing to do well. And this was colored pencil, right? We established that.
And well, we've just been told that they're seagulls. So we're both
seagulls.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Angie goes
Seagulls.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of what bird was white. Seagulls in a pond. That's interesting. I don't know if I ever saw seagulls in a pond, but I suppose a pond near the ocean or something like that, near the sea.
Oh, so I just wanted to say hello to anyone else that's come in. Did I say hello to Angie? Hello again. And hello to Jan. Welcome, welcome. All right. So I just wanted to say, like, when these entries... So this is it?
This is it.
This is
okay,
it.
It's pastel.
It's pastel.
It's pastel.
Okay. When these entries were coming in, folks, I got to tell you, I thought, thank God I am not the one that's critiquing, judging, anything. I thought to myself, this was going to be so difficult, and this was even more difficult than the portrait one. I think this one was.
Yes.
I thought, wow. But can I just say, everyone's work was just spot on. They were just so nice, beautiful to look at and everything. But we've got prizes for the first three. So I had nothing to do with this. I'll tell you this now. Nothing to do with this. But coming...
Yeah, just blame it all on me. Just blame it on me. See, I'm convinced that you ask me to do this just so you can't be blamed for anything.
But
That's what it really is.
But we all love you, you know that. So we do take a lot of notice of what you say, so we do respect your opinion and your critiques.
Yeah, and just to clarify one last time, in no way when I do these judgments should it reflect on what I think of you as an artist or what I think of your work or anything like that. There has to be a winner because that's the rules, but the winner doesn't necessarily mean better, just to be clear.
Okay, this is good. I like that.
I love all the work. I love all
yeah.
the work,
Oh,
as
yeah,
I
for sure.
hopefully expressed in the last hour and a half.
Oh, for sure. And before I start, I just wanted to say a few people have just come in. Steve, my dear friend, hello.
Grandpa Steve, I haven't seen you in such a long time.
Oh, wow.
So
And
lovely to see you.
yeah, and Naulani, thank you for coming in, coming into the chat and viewing this critique session. But coming in at number 3 is Cherry Jordan. Congratulations, Cherry. Coming in at number
Cherry's work.
Is Cherry, yep. Coming in at number 2 is Diane Schwer. Is it Schwer? I'm not even going to pronounce that right.
Diane.
It's just Diane coming in. And coming in at number 1 is Kathy Waller. So congratulations, Kathy.
It's Kathy's work here.
There.
The beautiful rocks. Beautiful rocks take first place.
Lovely.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yes, and so, Will. What everyone is going to get something from me, but the first 3 are going to get what I've got here are a pack of 5 sheets of pastel mat, which is 24 by 32 centimeters. So the first 3 will be getting those, and everyone else is getting some a pastel mat board for you to play around with. Now I'm not quite sure whether you can get these or whether you can get them quite easily. I'm very fortunate and I can get these very easily here. So I believe I have most of your addresses from the last time, but I will send you a message if I don't have your address. But I just and again I just wanted to say thank you so much, Will, for doing this. You're awesome. You know, you just help us in so many ways, and I mean I can't say thank you enough. So I'm just sort of very grateful that you're doing all of this.
Well,
now I'm getting all
really
tongue-tied.
Doing it. Yeah, I really enjoy doing it. I like seeing everybody's work and just getting to talk about it for an hour and a half or whatnot. Just I enjoy it. If you guys get something out of it, that's great. That's all I could hope for, and just wonderful submissions. So I look forward to the next opportunity to do this again.
And also I just wanted to add, for those who are just discovering or just happen to be in the live stream and that doesn't know Will or myself, but more for Will, I've got Will's details in the description box below. Will has an art club, which I think everyone should be a member of. I am a member of this. You get so much out of this and it's fantastic value. So the links are in the description box. So, you know, go in and have a look at those. But like I just wanted to say, thank you all very much. I hope you have a nice weekend, and you will have a nice weekend, and we'll see you all next week. I'll be live streaming next week as normal, and you'll be arting, Unmask Arting Clubbing.
Yep.
Yep. So thank you all, and goodbye, everyone.
Take care.